I'm the only one speaking right now. There's some hot mics up here. This is a message that God laid on my heart. The Friday night people know I'm looking at so many different things. It's hard for me to settle in. Jody, did you fix my clock? See how you are? And you're going to leave it over there, so I have to look sideways. You're slipping, Jody. You're slipping. Yeah, hold there. Stand there and hold it up that way. You don't have to look down. That'll work. You know you're part of this congregation when I start picking on you. I can't do that to visitors because they think I'm mean. The rest of you know I'm just sarcastic. But anyway, believe it or not, I practice what I teach you. Something that I have learned, something that God has led. I was thinking about translating. Led me into, and something that I have experienced, and sometimes I marveled at how God has changed me to do certain things. And this is a key to understanding who we are as ministers of the kingdom. The biggest thing you could do to learn the concept of being a servant to the king is to put everybody else first. Put everybody else first. And in Genesis chapter 12, beginning in verse 1, Adonai said to Avram, get going out of your land and from your relatives, from your father's house, to the land I will show you. God called our father Avram and said, leave everybody, go to the land I will show you. And then explained the reason why he wanted him to leave and go to a place he would show you is in verse 2. My heart's desire is to make you a great nation, to bless you and make your name great so that you may be a blessing. Very significant. Very significant. This is a call. This is God speaking to somebody, which happened in the garden. And depending on where you put Job, first time God ever spoke to somebody. And he called him and he said, my heart's desire is to make you a great nation, to bless you and make your name great so you may be a blessing. And it goes further in verse 3. My desire is to bless all those who bless you and I will curse all those and whoever curses you, I will curse, and then all the families of the earth will be blessed. That's an incredible calling. That's incredible calling. It wouldn't be nice if God showed up and talked to you like that. My desire is to bless you. My desire is to make you great. So great that you will bless all the earth. And I'll bless anyone that blesses you and curse those that curse you. That's a pretty good deal. Pretty good deal. Avram was 75 years old, the son of an idol maker. Yet, when he heard the voice of Adonai, Adonai is Hebrew for Lord, like kind of thing, he obeyed. You have to see that. It wasn't recorded anywhere at this point in history. Remember, the Torah wasn't written. Abraham didn't have a Torah. Hadn't been recorded anywhere that God spoke to people. I don't know where God speaks to him. Get up, get away from everybody because I'm going to bless you and make you great. And he obeyed. He grabbed his nephew Lot and his family and took them the way they were supposed to go. And he didn't even know where he was going or how long it would take, but he still went. He still went because God said, I chose you. I want to bless you. It is also a reality that Avram at this point in history would go for a lot of years without ever hearing from God again. Read the Bible. God spoke. I chose you. I'm going to bless you. I'm going to make you great. You're going to bless all the earth, and everyone that blesses you, I will bless. Anyone that curses you, I will curse. You go to a place I will show you. And then it's years and years of silence, which is interesting. And one of his most notable acts of obedience and faith to a God that called him was when God came and asked him to sacrifice his son Yitzchak, Isaac. And he didn't question God because he trusted in it that God would provide, right? That's okay, God will provide. Remember, Isaac was about 32 years old. His dad's pushing 100. He didn't take a little baby, put him on the altar. This was a man who obviously didn't fight. You have to understand that. You have to put all this in perspective. And so he said, don't worry, God will provide, despite being a personally painful and confusing trial. This couldn't say, oh, okay, I'll sacrifice my son. Son, we're going to go down and we'll get you on an altar. I'm going to sacrifice you to God because that's what God asked. And apparently everyone said, okay. When you get there and try to do that, it's like, this is not an easy thing to do. I don't care who you are, how much faith you have. Sometimes God asks you to do something that's not easy. And it's also true that sometimes when God said something, God said do this, he says, okay, even though sometimes it's like, I don't know, get up, leave everybody. Okay, now sacrifice your son, okay. But at other times we find that Abraham was a negotiator. Sometimes he's a negotiator. God spoke, didn't hear from a long time. God spoke, he did he did all kinds of things. And as a part of this promise that he would be great among all the nations, and all nations would be blessed before him, he ends up with a very traditional thing. His wife gives him her handmaiden, and she gives birth to Ishmael. Ishmael, the firstborn, the first circumcised, is Ishmael. He's the firstborn, first circumcised. It says big ramifications, which God is making reparations in the Mideast over this through my good friend who God called. And God said, look, I don't want that son. Get rid of him, right? I want you to bless the son I choose, which is not your firstborn, first circumcised. Unlike his son that he went and sacrificed, Isaac, who is Ishmael's brother, he said in, what's the next verse I'm going to? Chapter 17, verse 18. And he starts negotiating with God when he says this. If only Ishmael might live before you. And you think about that. He would learn just as, if God says something, fine. But when it came to Ishmael, throw him out, well, if you would only bless him. He put Ishmael first. Ishmael first. You need to see that. It's biblical to put others first, verse 19. But God said, on the contrary, Sarah, your wife, will bear a son. You will name him Isaac in English. So I confirm my covenant with him as an everlasting covenant for his seed after him. So he said, well, if only you would bless Ishmael. And God said, look, here's what it's going to be. I'm going to give you a son called Isaac. And he's the one whose seed will be a blessing. There's a really deep concept of this, the seed of Abraham. In the next verse, verse 20, as for Ishmael, I have heard you. he said, look, I'm concerned for Ishmael too. And God says, okay, I heard you. I have blessed him and will make him fruitful. I will multiply him very much. He will father 12 princes, and I will make him a great nation. A lot of the same type of promise he had made to Abraham, he now makes for Ishmael. And he's going to become a great nation, which is where the Arabs come from. The Arab nations come through Ishmael, who was the firstborn, first circumcised older brother. You have to see that, because it means something, particularly in the Mideast. Verse 21, but my covenant I will establish with Isaac, who Sarah will bear to you same time next year. Yeah, I hear you, but he's not the one. I will bless him. I'll make him great. He'll have 12 princes, the 12 tribes of Ishmael. You don't think about that often, but that's where the Arab nations came from. Ishmael. And God said, don't worry, I'll take care of this in a year. He's not going to get Sarah pregnant and say, okay, her baby is the one I choose. He said, you get rid of Ishmael, and in a year from now, I'll fulfill my promise to you through Sarah. And he did it. But before he just acted, he put Ishmael first. Abraham interceded and said, I want to put Ishmael first here. He's important. And I heard him, and he blessed Ishmael to be fruitful because of this. A little bit later on, of course, I'm walking through the Bible because I'm making the point of putting others first. Abraham interceded with God for the lives of those in Sodom and Gomorrah in hopes of sparing them from God's anger. Abraham's now sojourning through the land. And God said, I'm going to destroy the cities down on what is today the Dead Sea. Before this, it was the most lush area of the Mideast. The Dead Sea wasn't dead. Genesis 18, verse 20. Adonai said, he spoke this. The outcry against Sodom and Gomorrah is indeed great indeed, and their sin is very grievous indeed. He's talking to Abraham. And that's when the three came to Abraham. Sometimes one of them, it's interesting because it's not what I'm teaching, but you have to understand. One of them is God, and two of them are angels. In Judaism, that's a difficult thing, but it's pretty obvious one of them is God. But we don't like to think about God becoming a man and coming up to us. It points to you-know-who. And so we struggle in Judaism to say what that man was. But it's an interesting exchange. And Abraham serves them meat and dairy, I might point out. Which Orthodox Jews say, yeah, but that's before the Torah. You know, this kind of story is like a challenge for rabbinic Judaism. And then something odd is said that I'm not speaking of. You need to know how odd this is. 21, verse 21, I want to go down now and see if they deserve destruction, as this outcry has come up to me. If not, I will know it. This is where he starts talking like God. Its outcry came up to me. I got to go see if it's right. You could have fun with that theologically. God has to come down and see if what he heard is right. It said, then the men turned, verse 22, the men turned from there and went down towards Sodom, but Abraham was still standing there without an eye, which is a complex thing. One of them seems to be Adonai, the other two are angels, and the men who are angels turn and leave, and the one who is Adonai stands there and keeps talking to him, which is vastly confusing for rabbinic Jews. And then Abraham does what he did for Ishmael. He says, wait a minute. It's not just about me. I want to put others first here. You're going down to wipe out cities in one of the most beautiful oases in the Middle East historically. But Abraham's still standing there before Adonai. One of the guys, like I said, somehow one of the guys is the Lord, is God. And Abraham says in verse 24, suppose there's 50 righteous within the city. Will you really sweep away and not spare the place for the sake of 50 righteous who are in it? And he starts interceding on behalf of somebody else. Are you really going to sweep away and not spare the place if there's 50 righteous people in there? And then he pleads with God on behalf of somebody else, putting them first and saying in verse 25, far be it from you to do such a thing, to cause the righteous to die with the wicked. So the righteous and the wicked share the same fate. Far be it from you. Shall you judge the whole world and not exercise justice? He appeals to God for God's mercy. And he's standing there talking to God. As I said, which is a problem for rabbinic Jews. It's not very much of a problem for us. Verse 26, and Adonai said, look, if I find in Sodom 50 righteous people within the city, I will spare the whole place for their sake. He has been an effective intercessor. Verse 27, Abraham answered and said, look, pray, I have decided to speak to you with my Lord, although I am dust and ashes. So he's going to continue negotiating. And he said, look, pray, communicate. Prayer's communication. I have decided to speak to you, my Lord. Challenge to speak to God. He's not used to this. He's the first guy that ever did it, right? Though I'm dust and ashes. Look, I'm talking, but it's not about me. I'm trying to do something for Sodom and Gomorrah. Verse 28, suppose the 50 righteous people are lacking 5. Will you destroy the whole city for the lack of 5? And God responds to him because he can do the math in the rest of the verse. You know, he said, sorry, I didn't read it. God said, I will not destroy it if I find 45 there. I didn't read it up there. Yeah, it is up there. And I will find 45 either. In the next verse, Abraham spoke to God who was standing there in front of him once again. He said, perhaps 40 will be found there. And God said, standing in front of him, I will not do it for the sake of 40. Verse 29. Am I on 30 now, Joni? Just keep me going. I don't know where I am. I don't pay much attention. Then he said, please, my Lord, don't be angry. He's talking to God. It's a big deal. He's standing there talking to God. Please don't be angry so that I can keep speaking to you because I'm negotiating because I want to put somebody else first here. Perhaps 30 will be found there. And God said, well, okay, I won't destroy it for 30. Verse 31. And he said, Lord, pray. Let me communicate with you. I have decided to speak to you. I've decided I'm going to keep speaking with you. I'm going to keep negotiating with you. Please, please. Perhaps 20 will be found there. And God said, I will not destroy it for the sake of 20. Verse 32. And he said, please, let not my Lord be angry, so I may speak once more. Perhaps 10 will be found there. And he said, I will not destroy it for the sake of 10. And the negotiation ends right there which is why in Rabbinic Judaism you have to have 10 men to have a service, because that's like the lowest number God will spare. That's where that concept of minyan comes from. If you ever heard that before, it's there. And all it is, unlike get up, go to a country, go up, leave your country, go somewhere else, show you, right? Just do this. Take your son, sacrifice him. As for Ishmael, send him away. He negotiates. Isaac, he doesn't negotiate. Did you see that? He negotiates for Ishmael. He doesn't negotiate for Isaac. And then he negotiates for the cities, the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah. But he didn't. Why? Family is family. He worries about others. Family is family. If you've given yourself and your family to God, you have given yourself and your family. I didn't do the thing God told me to do today. So hard to find good help. I put you in charge, but you're from Chicago and you forget things. Next week when I call the children up, everybody remind me I'm supposed to do something else. Yeah, sorry about that, Lord. Put others first. Put others first. Family is family. I belong to the Lord. My family belongs to the Lord. If I give myself to the Lord, then I give my family to the Lord. If God wants to do something, okay. But if he's going to do something with somebody else, I could put them first. No. I want to intercede for them. I want to put others first. We'll put others first. Now, the reason when you go down to the Dead Sea today, it's a Dead Sea. It's a desert wilderness, and you can't really visit Sodom and Gomorrah because it was destroyed with brimstone and fire, right? And that happens in Genesis 13. Because God had called Avram to leave, and he took he took Lot with him, his nephew, and they're traveling together through the land of promise. And now Lot, who was going with Avram, also had sheep and cattle and tents. They're traveling together, but God's blessing in them, and they're growing and growing as they travel through the land of promise. In verse 6, so now the land could not support them living together. Now there's a lot of land. Trouble is there's too many people. Too many people. Their possessions were many. They were not able to stay together. You get too many people, there's not enough stuff. We stop here and camp. It's like you can't feed everybody because God has blessed us and there's just too many. In verse 7, there was a quarrel between the shepherds of Avram's livestock and the shepherds of Lot's livestock. Now it starts to squabble. God hates squabbling. And it's family. Nothing worse than family. The families at each other. Families are at each other. It says the Canaanite, the Perizzites were living in the land then. In other words, we were sojourning the land that God promised us. And we're sojourning, but he still didn't give it to us. And we got so much stuff. The shepherds of one lot are arguing with the shepherds of the other Avram because there's not enough grass for all the critters. Because they hadn't received the land, but they were walking through the land of promise. Verse 9. Avram 8. Avram, go ahead. Where am I supposed to be? Okay, go ahead to verse 8. Avram said to Lot, wait. There should be no strife between me and you and between your shepherds and my shepherds and yours. We're relatives. Wait. We shouldn't be fighting. We're relatives. We shouldn't be fighting. This is a relative. This is not an outsider that we're going to put first. This is an internal family squabble, which happens quite regularly. And then Avram does something that is incredibly generous in the next verse, verse 9. Isn't the whole land before you? Please separate yourself from me. If to the left, I'll go to the right. If to the right, I'll go to the left. Look, we can't stay together. You choose. If you go to the left, I'll go to the right. If you go to the right, I'll go to the left. And Avram lets Lot choose first, although the land was promised to Avram. He puts Lot first, and I would think it's because Lot could argue that Avram took the better land from him, which could cause greater discord. Avram said, look, I'll take that land that's lush and green. You go somewhere else. No, he puts Lot first. Although the land was promised to Avram, he puts Lot first. You go to the right, I'll go to the left. If you go to the left, I'll go to the right. Lot chose the plain, what's it called in English? Plain, land, valley? Does anyone remember what it's called in English? I don't remember what it's called in English. The land before him was the sea. You have the river going into the sea, and it's the luscious area in the Mideast. It's absolutely beautiful. And if you go down there today, it's the Dead Sea, and everything is destroyed. Why? Because it rained fire and brimstone. And the beautiful sea became a dead sea, and everything around it died. And it's really a barren desert that historically wasn't that way, but historically is going to be restored. And I think it was my last tour, those of you that were with me, there was a school teacher that every break she'd go down to the Dead Sea and walk the perimeter on the Israeli side because Jordan's on the other side. She'd walk and look for life in the Dead Sea because it's prophesied that in the end of days, fish will live in the Dead Sea. And they haven't lived there since God rained down fire and brimstone. In my last tour, the school teacher had gone down, and she found pockets of fish in freshwater pools along the coast of the Dead Sea. And it was an exciting find for anyone that believes in the Bible. The Dead Sea is coming back to life, which is a promise of God. It's a promise of God. Back to Genesis 23. Now, Sarah's life was 127 years, the years of Sarah's life. Okay, it's talking about Sarah now. She's does what all was doing. She's getting old. She's 127 years old. And Sarah died in Kiryat Arba, that is Hebron. All of my tours have gone there, to Machpelah, in the land of Canaan. And Abraham came to mourn Sarah and to weep after her. This is the demise of Sarah. Then Abraham, verse 3, rose from before the dead, and he spoke to the sons of Heth. The sons of Heth are not the descendants of Abraham. They are the people of the land, because Abraham sojourned through the land, but was never given the land he was promised. You have to understand that. It's part of how God works with us. He's sojourning through the land. It's still owned by somebody else. So they died down by Kiryat Arba, whose modern name is Hebron. And he spoke to the sons of Heth as though he was the outsider, because he was the outsider. He knew, even though God had promised him the land, God had not yet given it to him. And Avram, who is Abraham at this point in history, because I'm to verse chapter 23, I am an outsider and a sojourner through you, among you. He didn't say, look, God gave me this land, which God did. Because God promised him the land, he hadn't given him the land. And he said, I'm an outsider and a sojourner among you. Give me a grave site among you so I may bury my dead from before my presence. I don't own a cemetery because I don't own everything. So he goes to the sons of Heth who live in the environs of Kiryat Arba of Hebron. And he says, give me a grave site. In verse 5, it says, the sons of Heth answered him, saying, verse 6, listen to us, my Lord. You are a prince of God among us. Bury your dead in the best of our graves. None of us will withhold his grave from you to bury your dead one. The dead are buried in caves. A lot of the caves had to be dug out, so you had a place to bury. And he says, I don't own a cemetery. And they said, look. You're not just a sojourner. You're a prince of God among us. They recognize his significance. You're a prince of God. None among us would withhold his grave. And then in the next verse, Abraham got up and bowed down to the people in the land, the son of Heth. Abraham, he said, no, you're a prince of God. You're great among us. And he bowed down before them. Because he recognized he was a sojourner in the land. Although God had promised him the land, he respected someone else, always putting them first. No. You have this land right now. And you might think I'm a prince of God, but I will bow before you. On a tangent, the last time I was over in Zambia, I went. We were going to do something, and word got out. We were down in the southern end of Zambia, which is ruled by the queen. Very powerful queen. And before I was there, another Messianic went over there, and they went to see the queen at her palace. And it is a tradition to bow before the queen. And the Messianic that went over, whose name I will not mention, said, Jews bow to no one but God. And I thought, that's why they call us ugly Americans. And so I went over. Well, word got out that I was in the neighborhood. I don't know how word got out. So we come out the road where we are, and we pull over a stop, and there's this big black SUV. And I said, why are we stopping? And they said, because that's the Queen's car. I thought, oh, well, then. And so we all get out, and I walk over, and I stand back like this. And Rabbi Alex, this is Rabbi Judah, who you have heard about. And I stood until she invited me. She said, approach. And I approached, and I bowed down. Because it's not, like, she's the queen. I'm not a stuffy Jew or a stuffy American. Of course I'll bow down. And then she stretched out her hand. When she stretched out her hand, I stretched out my hand. I would never, you see, the queen is first. And she invited me to her house, which is, she liked it. She broke all kind of protocol. And I don't know where, that's not the verse I was on. I was in verse 7. He bowed down to the sons of Heth. He didn't say, look, God gave me this land. All right? And they said, oh, you're a prince of God. You take whatever you want, which was his right before God and his right before the people of land. But no, he bows before them. And verse 8 said, and spoke with them, saying, if you are a mind to let me bury my dead from before your presence, listen to me. Plead with Ephron of Zophar on my behalf. Please intercede for me. There's a council gate type kind of things that this takes place in. I want to ask of the Ephron of Zophar, verse 9. That he may give me the cave of Machpelah, which is why in the Bible it's called Machpelah, which is, it is also today Kiryat Arba, which is the Israeli name for it, the biblical name Machpelah. At the end of the field, at full price, and let him give it in your midst at a gravesite. Council of Elders is what he's talking about. And he says, we'll give you anything you want. And he said, no, let me give it, I want to approach this particular elder, and I want to pay full price. And it says, now Ephraim was sitting in the midst of the sons of Heth. Obviously, he's a big shot. These are elders. And he answered Avram in the ears of the sons of Heth, and all those enter the gates. So he speaks, he heard the offer, and he speaks in front of all the sons of Heth. And it says they were at the gate of the city. The gate of the city is where all decisions are made. In the Bible, the gates of the city is where you make all important decisions. And that's important when you read the Bible. They were at the gate of the city and stuff like that. This means something in the Bible. And he says in verse 11, he responds to that, no, my Lord, no, listen to me. The field, I hereby give it to you. Also the cave that's in it. In the eyes of the sons of my people, I hereby give it to you. Bury your dead one. He has made a decision at the gates of the city. You don't have to pay full price. I say in all these witnesses, it is something that is a legal standard. I say in the midst of all these people, I give it to you. You don't have to pay full price. Verse 12. Avram bowed down to him in the midst, before all the people of the land. In other words, the people of the land are there, but he's talking to this one guy now who says, no, you don't have to pay full price, they give it to you. And what's he do? He bows down before him. Even though God gave him the land, even though they said he could have it, even though the owner says you don't have to pay for it, I'll give it to you, he bows down, putting someone else first. In the next verse, he spoke to Avram in the ears of the people of the land, saying, so he's speaking, a legal exchange at the gates of the city. But if only you would please listen to me, I hereby give the price of the field. Accept it from me, so I may bury my dead ones there. And I lost my place. Go to verse 14. I don't know what it is. So Avram responds to that. That's what it is. In verse 15, my Lord, listen to me. The land's worth 400 shekels. What's that between me and you? Bury your dead one there. Look, it's only worth 400 shekels. What's that? Just take it. Verse 11. Abraham said to Avram, so Abraham weighed out to Ephron the silver that he had spoken of in the ears of the sons of Heth, 400 shekels at the merchant's rate. All that talk, and he says, no, I'm going to put you first. I will bow before you. Don't pay. It's only worth this. Here's the money. Put somebody else. Put everybody else first. No matter how great you are, or how much the promises of God are upon you, you have to put others first. Put others first. Now that's what I want you to grasp. More than anything, put others first. Put others first. And even when God has spoken to you, even though you're more important, even though you're more significant, even though people look up to you, The queen was so astounded at me because frankly, everybody in Zambia had heard about me. I'm the world famous Rabbi Judah. And I know that is meaning to you because you guys are used to me. When I travel around the world, people say, wow, it's Rabbi Judah. Here it's like, hi, Rabbi. Which is fine, by the way. She was so impressed. She invited me to come to her home, which breaks all protocol. You're not allowed to approach a queen in her home. You can only approach the queen in her palace. That is the proper protocol. This has been going on for a lot of centuries. And we go over, and she's out jogging. And they say you could wait in the living room. I go in the living room. It's a nice living room. You know, it's Africa. I was in a lot of villages and places that are called villages. You know, a lot of mud huts, thatch huts, dusty roads or something. I went in the living room. I was like, that's a nice living room. And this was the living room, as opposed to the living room, which was next door. She is the queen. And I'm sitting in there on the couch. She comes in the front door. She's all sweaty, wearing her sweats. She said, oh, I'm sorry. I just felt like going for a run. And she sat in her chair. All the protocols out. I had taken her a gift, which is the proper thing to do. You know, the silver city of Jerusalem that sits probably in the entranceway somewhere. I took her one of those. And I got up from the couch and went over and I knelt on the floor before her. And I said, this is a gift for you, Your Majesty. And I hope you enjoy it because it means something to me. And then I spoke prophetically into her. And it's like, I put her first. I put her first. I was Rabbi Judah. I didn't have to. I didn't have to bow to her. I didn't have to kneel before her. I didn't have to call her Your Majesty. But I did. Why? Because I put others first. I always put others first. Only Irina was at the wedding last week with Katrina and Alexander, but I was there to serve. There was a Russian-speaking pastor that actually ran the service. I just filled in the gaps. But I just was there and I ministered to people all over the room. I'd see something, I go over and talk to somebody and give them a word of encouragement, give them a good word of. I just did. I love putting other people first. That's the call on all our lives. Put other people's first. Now I want to talk to you about Beth Messiah. What's God's calling for us here? Many are called, few are chosen. You have to fulfill your calling. That's why I was doing the study in Nehemiah. You should have a successful ministry before God. How can you run a successful ministry? Start by putting others first in every instance. One day this week I was here. Used to be you can come here during the week and find 5 people. 5 people. Since we bought this building, there's been 5 people here kind of regularly doing things. And that continues, believe it or not. And I was talking because we have lost Dwayne, who is an incredibly faithful servant. And there's only 4 of us now. And when the 4 of us gather here during the week, when nobody even knows we're here, which is okay, I really miss Dwayne. Because he was one of the 5. Now there's 4. And the 4 are here in the room, and you know who I'm talking about. And it's like things happen all the time with people putting other people first when there's no recognition in putting other people's first. You need to know that. There's no recognition when you put other people first. And you don't want recognition. If you put other people before you, you'll never be recognized. Which if you're in the kingdom is okay. That's okay. But you've got to go beyond yourself. God didn't bring you into the kingdom to be a spectator. There are no spectators in the kingdom of God. Of necessity, a kingdom is run by a king. And if you get into the kingdom, you serve the king, which means you serve. You serve somewhere. I mentioned Isaiah, who's been on the sax since his bar mitzvah. By the same token, Joshua's been on the drums. Kieran's been on the webcasting. Young people have been faithful. And frankly, Isaiah and Joshua get a little bit more recognition than Kieran because Kieran's sitting in the back behind. Say hi, turn around and go, hi, Kieran. Kieran, that's Kieran. If you're webcasting, you can't see him, but he's back there. If you enjoy the webcasting, Kieran's the one that does it for you. But here's who we are. We are a kingdom center. And we're going to push out. There's all kinds of things happening. If you were at the business meeting, thank you for being here. If you're at the business meeting, we talk about what we're going to do. God has great call, and we talked about some things we're trying to do. But you got to put others first. And we're working on many things. Many people are doing things that nobody else knows they're working on. And if they do it well, you may never know that they did it. And so you have to do things. In Philippians chapter 2, verse 3, do nothing out of selfish conceit. With humility, consider others more important than yourselves. It's a simple concept. Think of others more important than you are. Don't do it out of selfishness or conceit, but with humility, put others first. Verse 4, looking out not only for your own interest, but for the interest of others. You got to put others first. It's something that's been ingrained with us since Avram, who's the first one to talk to God. And so now you're all the way to Philippians and 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 24. Paul writes, don't let no one seek his own good, but the good of his neighbor. Are you a blessing to the person that lives in the house next to you? Think about this. In modern society, we tend not to know the person that lives next to us. Last week, one of my neighbors was, frankly, out of town with her mom in South Carolina. And she let me know that she was having some packages delivered, and she didn't want to leave them outside. She says, I'm not going to get home. Take care of the packages that are delivered to my house. That's okay. I'm thinking about it. That's what a neighbor should do. She doesn't come here. She goes to a church. Except she's been taking care of her mom. So I don't know if she can go anymore because her elderly mom lives with her. And so I know something's coming one day, and I see the mail truck pull out, and he's getting in the back to get out packages. I had just pulled in, and so I thought, well, I'll go. And he's getting packages, and I take them. He gives me the mail. Then he drives to my house. And I turn around, and I walk to my house because I'm going to go in the garage. And he said, wait a minute. Do you live in this house? And I said, yeah. And she said, well, what about that mail? I said, yeah, it's hers. I picked up for her. And he says, oh. You know, is that a big deal? And then when she came home, I had a wheelbarrow full of stuff for her. Because much more than I can carry. And I wheeled it over to her door, and she took them. Why? Because I should put her first. What do I get out of it? Yeah, my neighbor's happy with me. But she knows she can call me and say, don't let things stack up in front of my front door. I'm out of town. Why not? Let no one seek his own good, the good of his neighbor. If you're not a blessing to your neighbor, the person that lives next to you, if you're not a blessing to them, what are you doing? Do you understand? Neighbor on the other side, it's rental. It switches around. There's a Jewish guy moved in 2 families ago. And I greeted him. Welcome to the neighborhood. I'm Rabbi Judah. What kind of rabbi? Messianic. She's, oh, my sister's Messianic. I know all about that. Don't talk to me. But you know what? If they're going to live next to me, I might as well say, hey, I'm here. Across the street, guy died. And his wife, his elderly wife, is living here by herself. I see her all the time. We go out to get our mail together. And I said, let me know if I can ever do anything for you. I do that because I seek the good of my neighbor. My neighbor. Now, I can get in front of people on a microphone and say, I did this stuff. But the reality is, I didn't do that so I could say I did this. I did this because I put others first, because that's a kingdom perspective. 1 Corinthians 10:32. Give no offense either to Jewish or Greek people or God's community. Don't give offense to one another. I've been exchanging with some people who left this congregation who are mad at me. Oh, as though somebody could get mad at me. And they're firing off text after text after text, explaining how I'm wrong. I'm wrong. And I said, blessings, dear. Blessings, Gigi. And they're explaining, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong. And I said, well, I think you're mistaken. People blast me all the time. But you know what? I don't want anyone to be judged on me. I release everybody. Do you understand that? I don't care what anyone's ever done to me. May God bless them. I don't want anyone to be judged on account of me. Don't offend, either Jewish or Greek. Because I'll tell you what our problem is as a congregation, we're either too Jewish or not Jewish enough. And that's the problem. That's the whole problem. You're either too Jewish, I'm offended, you're too Jewish. I'm offended, you're not Jewish enough. And it's the same people from it's the same congregation, and that's why people judge us. You're too Jewish, you're not Jewish enough. So don't worry about the Jewish, the Greek. Don't worry about this. This is a Greek congregation, by the way. Verse 33. Just as I always try to please everyone and everything, not seeking my own benefit, but the benefit of many so that they may be saved. I want to be a testimony, not you got to say a prayer or you're going to go to hell. No, you need help. You need somebody drove over a mailbox in the neighborhood, broke it right off. Lady living by herself, and I said, I'll take care of that for you. Got a new post, bag of concrete, pick it up, dug a hole, put it in there. It's done. It's taken care of. It's taken care of. Why? Because I'm trying to save her from hell? No, because I want to benefit everybody else. I want them to see. Everybody knows who I am. I'm Rabbi Judah. They know I'm Messianic. They're not all sure what that means. But in my neighborhood, they know I'm a nice guy and I will do anything for anybody because I try to please everybody and everything. See, not everyone needs a Bible study. Some people need their broken mailbox fixed. Do you know that? To some people, it's more important that you repair a broken light than read the Bible to them. You've got to put others first. That's the kingdom. Put others first. 2 Corinthians 8:9. For you know the grace of our Lord the Messiah, that even though he was rich, yet for the sake he became poor. And through his poverty you might become rich. Messiah, put others first. Messiah came and put others first. Talk about Abraham, because by that time he was Abraham, saying to the people of the land, no. I'm going to bow to you. Messiah came and bowed for us. He put us first. He could certainly say to the high priest or to the Romans, look. He actually said to the Romans, they say you're the king of the Jews. They said, yeah, you said it. Which is what offended the Jews. He said he was king of the Jews. Say, wait. And he put others first. You have to see that you might become rich. He became poor so that we may become rich. Yeshua put us first. He put us first. If Yeshua put us first, how are we not putting others first? How are we not putting others first? Proverbs, Mishlei 11:30. The fruit of the righteous is a tree of life. Whoever wins souls is wise. Whoever wins souls is wise. I know most of you could not grasp the concept of the Hope Fest. I know that. I'm well aware. These things are it's almost like that's something else to do. And it was particularly cold for Florida. It was cold. And besides that, everybody knows the neighborhood is largely a Spanish-speaking community on this side of the street. And you just didn't have a heart for it. And that's okay. Sometimes it's like, I was involved from its inception. We had no idea what was going to happen. We had no idea. This is an unreached community. We had it in the worst part of the city, which is right there. And they're still trying to sort it out. Renan, who had a vision for that and did it, he's the one that had the vision put it together. It wasn't us, it was him. But we, those of you that showed up, made such an impact. And I got an email. We've got to start organizing. We want to meet with your Spanish people every Tuesday and Thursday. And I said, okay, when? What are we going to talk about? So we haven't figured that out yet. They're putting things together. They estimate 300 to 350 salvations. We were supposed to say a video, but Joni failed. You got to be be about winning souls. And you win souls not by being up on a stage with a microphone. You win souls by putting others first. And I was talking to Larry this week, because he's one of the 5 that used to be here. And see, one of the things that Larry is gifted with is to bless the Kingdom Center with making it more beautiful, which will be part of the entranceway into bringing the whole community here. So his job is not necessarily, number one, to go and read the Bible to people. His job and his calling is to make the place more beautiful. And there are other people who are here doing other things that nobody even knows they're doing, but because they're making the Kingdom Center a better place. And some of you come and show up for a service and wait for God to bless you. And I'm saying, be a blessing to others. Put others first. Daniel 12:3 is a beautiful vision. I love the visions of Daniel. Those who are wise will shine like the brightness of a heavenly expanse. Those who turn many to righteousness are like the stars forever and ever. Just look at that. That's a beautiful picture. Those who are wise will shine like the brightness of the heavenly expanse. Those who turn many to righteousness will be like stars forever and ever. It's the first time we were down, the Queen invited us to tour her land. She got a nice piece of land. And we were out on one of the rivers. They have a lot of rivers. And I'm telling you, the only light was they built me a campfire. Because it was cool down there. They built a fire, and I'm sitting here, and I'm looking up, and I can see galaxies. Not just the stars. You can't do it in the United States because there's too many lights here. No lights down there. And I could not just see the stars. I could see galaxies. It's like, whoa. And Daniel knows those who turn many to righteousness will be like stars that shine forever and ever. Put others first. Paul explains in 1 Corinthians 9, for though I am free from all men, I made myself a slave to all, that I might win over more of them. I become like anything I need to do to win others, I will do. I will bow to the Queen because I represent the kingdom of God to her. And as a representative kingdom of God to her, I honor her. Because what I told her was that Alex and I are simply rabbis. We will cease to be rabbis in the kingdom to come. She will always be a queen. And she's, I don't want to be a queen. I said, you don't understand. We were called to be rabbis. You were born to be a queen, excuse me. There's a king. The king lives up north. You were born to be a queen. It's your birthright. She said, I don't want to be a queen in the kingdom. I said, you always will, your majesty. But the king will be here, so you don't have that much to do. Why? I become all things so that I might win some more of them. I wanted to show her the great respect I had for her. I may be a world-famous rabbi. She was born to be a queen. I was simply called to be a rabbi. When I see Yeshua face to face, he said, hey, Rabbi, ain't going to happen. Ain't going to happen. Jacob. They changed his name to James in honor of King James when they rewrote the Bible in English. Chapter 5, verse 20. Let him know the one who turns a sinner from the error of his ways shall save a soul from death and cover a multitude of sins. You want to deal with your shortcomings? Lead other people to Messiah. Lead other people to Messiah. Do something. There's a lot of opportunity. Put others first. And I will end with one thing that Yeshua said that you need to see in Matthew 9:37. The harvest is plentiful, the workers are few. I don't want you to pray that God will bring in the workers. You're here. Be a worker. Be a worker. There's a work party tomorrow. If you come, you will get the credit of all of us that are here. We'll see you. And we will share the work with you. Next week, people come to the service and they won't even know what we did at the work party tomorrow. They may notice something. Chances are they won't. They won't, because it's not done to be noticed. It's done to serve God. We're going to be doing all kinds of things. I want to open up the outreaches. I want to start outreaching again. I don't want us to internalize. COVID shut us down. It's time for us to push back on that. Push back on that. Wherever there's an open door, let's go. Let's go. We're going to start reaching out into the neighborhood again, changing some terminology. I'll meet with those of you who are called to this, and we'll see what God's going to do. We have a lot more support from the Christian community to support us as we go into this neighborhood. We have a lot of support from them. We have support coming in all kind of different areas that you don't even know. People are trying to help us as a Kingdom Center by coming alongside us, ministering to us, through us, with us, even in the property, upgrading the property, which is something that is being planned. It's you won't see it, you don't know about it, it's okay. Other people want to do this. If you're interested in becoming a servant of God, in reaching out and doing something for God, I want you to come forward because I want to pray for you. If you want to do this, come forward. If you're uncomfortable, don't worry about it. Right now, on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Karen, you can shut down the webcasting. Thank you all for being with us.